So it appears to be pretty much a given now that come July the 5th, 2024 in the UK, our new Prime Minister will be Keir Starmer with the Labour Party. To be honest, like, even the Conservatives seem to have thrown in the towel, quite frankly, at this point. They're doing so badly that, believe it or not, they're now talking about the fact that they may not even be the main opposition party. Wowzers. I can't really recall or imagine such a scenario before. Anyway, none of my business. The main thing that I'm concerned about, and the main thing that I want to talk to you about, is, well, what will it mean for the motorists? What will it mean for cars? Well, let's see what they have to say about that.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
Right, so they have announced a number of things. They've announced things in the past as well. So chief among those, for example, is that they always said that, when Rishi Sunak changed the deadline for the banning of petrol and diesel cars from 2030 to 2035, and they did say that they would be putting it back to 2030. So I think that remains the case. To be honest with you, it's a bit smoke and mirrors, that whole change that Rishi made, because why do I say that? In addition to the 2030 thing, there's also, I keep calling it the ZEV mandate, which actually is its own name. There is a newer name for it, but I keep forgetting what it is. I think it's a zero emission vehicle trading scheme, something like that. But let's just call it the ZEV mandate because that's what it's popularly known as. And that had previously already planned to stipulate a certain percentage of increase in electric vehicle sales up to 80% in 2030. That was the case before the change from 2030 to 2035, and it remained the case afterwards. So in fact, nothing actually changed. Because and you say, well, why was it still only 80% in 2030? Because there was an allowance made for certain kind of plugins, certain kind of hybrids, which would mean plugins, because plugins pretty much can run on electric power around town. So like range extender hybrids, for example, and plug-in hybrids, I think those sort of vehicles. So nothing really actually changed. And the fact that they're going to change it back, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. I mean, there's probably going to be people talking about it. There's probably going to be part of the industry going, yay, this is great news. And there'll probably be another part of the industry going, oh, this is terrible news. But in actual fact, it didn't actually make a jot of difference before, and won't make a jot of difference now. But they are big on EVs. Now, before I get into that, you've got to go watch my video that I posted last night, quite late last night actually, because when I was out all day, when I got home, I saw the news about the EU tariffs, kind of trade sanctions, but actually just tariffs against EVs coming from China. And of course, the UK is not in the EU, so we don't necessarily have to abide by that. But I did argue the case, or I did look at the case, that it seems that Britain would probably follow suit because America is also imposing a massive tariff on EVs from China. Biden wants to put 100% tariff, basically double the prices, on EVs from China. So I think Britain will have to do that as well. But at the same time, Labour, so I'm talking about Labour, will have to do that as well. But at the same time, Labour wants to promote EVs. So a series of initiatives include improving the UK's road charging infrastructure. So this is the public charging infrastructure. Now, the one thing that they don't mention is actually making it more, or incentivizing people to use it, because the big problem with the public charging infrastructure is the cost. Actually, the big problem is that there aren't any. That's the big problem. My apologies. That's the number one problem, is that there's simply not enough. And there's a whole case around, why would private companies bother to build them when they're not being used to the rate at which, and so it's like a chicken and egg thing. It's like, do you build the chargers first and then the owners will come? Or do you wait till people own enough EVs and then you build the chargers? But then, each impacts the other. So we're kind of stuck in that situation at the moment. But the reality is there are not enough chargers. But the biggest problem on top of that is the cost of public charging, because there's a full VAT charge on that. Whereas if you charge at home, I think it's 5%. If you charge public charges, I think it's 20%. Correct me if I'm wrong. But It's quite a big substantial difference, which actually then means it works out that it's actually more expensive on public charges to run an EV than it is to run a petrol car. I think it's 21 pence per mile on public charges to run an EV compared to 18 pence per mile on a petrol car. The party aims to set new targets to roll out 300 chargers. The plans were to roll out 300,000 chargers by 2030, and this is likely to be missed. No kidding. Labour promises to support local authorities by providing better guidance on the use of charge point funding and reviewing the effectiveness of existing funds, including the Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure LEVI levy fund. Labour plans to remove planning barriers that hinder the installation of more chargers. So of course you need planning permission. You know, the crazy thing is, like, did I just walk past the lamppost? They're on the other side, actually, the other side of the road there. And, you know, technically each of those can be turned into a charging point. Now, wouldn't be the fastest charger, it'd be quite a slow charger, but it still would be a charger. And one of the key things they could do, I mean, there isn't that many here, but for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'd say every dozen houses or so, there's a lamppost. So theoretically, you know, I mean, still not enough really, is it? But at least it gives more opportunities. And that could be very easily done. So here's a lamppost, for example. And if you look at it, if I can show you, see that bit down there? That bit down, oops, sorry, other way, down there? You could just put a plug in there because there's already power supply coming into there. So that's where, you know, that would be an easy win. And, you know, if the government made them free, that would be even better because they're not that convenient, they're not that fast, but that would be incentivizing people. But anyway, so they're trying to make it easier, and they want to introduce a new road safety strategy. This is something else, aimed at reducing traffic deaths and injuries. So by this, I mean, they haven't specifically spoken about things like 20 miles per hour limits, LTNs and stuff like that. But by reading that, you can read into that, certainly I will read into that they will double down on 20 miles per hour limits where they exist and actually increase them where they don't. And we know they have previous on this because we know they did it in Wales. Labour ran Wales, even though they've had to throttle back on it. Hasn't actually physically happened yet because I haven't got the budget now to turn the signs back. But they have said that local people in local areas can make the decision about what speed limit they want. But it's very likely that they're going to double down on it and they're going to increase that. The party highlights that between 1997 and 2010, the Labour government halved the number of road fatalities, whereas the Conservative government only achieved an 11% reduction from 2010 to 2023. I mean, that's quite dramatic if that's true, but at the same time, have you ever heard of the law of diminishing returns? I mean, you're going to get to a point where, okay, well, you can't, there's only so much more you can do. You know, if you have 1,000 deaths, you reduce it to 500. If you have 500, you reduce it to 250. You get 250, you reduce it to 125, and then you're talking about 50. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It gets much harder to make that big a difference. Labour's proposed strategic framework for road safety aims to reverse this trend. Well, that's back to the road safety thing. Now, the other thing is road repairs, potholes. And actually, because they did a big thing about that recently. And I'm going to switch to actually, where was that report? That was in Auto Express. So let's go to that one. So this was a headline in Auto Express. This was, I think, just day before yesterday, I think it was. Labour to fix 1 million potholes per year under a new plan for drivers. Labour's bid for motorist vote includes funding for potholes and an investigation into unfair car insurance practices and a reform for road building and EV charging plan. Well, EV charging we already talked about, so we won't get into that again. So their plan for drivers, this is, you know, I think about a year ago, the Conservative released their plan for motorists. So Labour Party has now released their plan for drivers, ahead of the election, of course. And of course the thing is, like, and as this report refers to, you know, we do say that Labour is one of the instigators of the war on motorists. Not as much as, say, the Green Party, but Then I do anyway. I can't tell you who to vote for, so I won't say anything. Up until now, the Conservative Party, well, okay, it's fine. Labour's Shadow Transport Secretary Louise Hay says that the new policies will include £320 million, £64 million per year for local pothole repairs across the country. It's not really enough. The party will tackle the issue of inflated car insurance by urging the Competition and Markets Authority as well as the Financial Conduct Authority to launch investigations into whether the usage of postcodes to determine pricing is unfairly targeting ethnic minorities and those on lower incomes. Well, that's not a bad thing, actually. That's a good thing. But the reality is, I think the insurance companies are going to say, well, that's what we do. Not so much the ethnic thing, because they can't do that, but certainly in terms of area, in terms of postcode, because they have statistics for every area. So if they have an area where there's a high incidence of crime, then insuring a car in London is going to be more expensive than insuring a car in the middle of Wales. Let's be honest, that's the reality of it. And I don't see how you can change that. But yeah, targeting people by ethnicity, that's a bad thing. And if that is happening, then yeah, we've got to stop that done. I don't see really how they could get insurance companies. We've discussed this in previous videos with the insurance claim guru about how insurance companies actually work, what they actually do with their money, and why we're actually being penalized at the moment. Look at that, can you see that? Oh, you just missed it. Has a classic 911. Black, beautiful. Whoever you are, you're rocking it. Brilliant. So, insurance companies, what they actually do to their money, apparently what they do is we all think that they take all of our premiums, they put them into a pot, and then they use that for emergency payouts. No, what they do is they take all of our money and they basically gamble it on the stock market. And what happened was that during the pandemic, they lost a shit ton of money. And this is what insurance claim guru told me. And because they lost so much money, this is the real of course, there's many reasons. Higher cost of repairs, higher incidences, the problem with lots of EVs being written off. There's lots of reasons for premiums going up, but the chief reason actually is because they lost so much money and they're trying to claw it back. So we're paying for their mistake. And of course, Labour says they will support public transport, such as publicly owned rail service, creation of 1,300 new bus routes to free up space on the roads and thus cut traffic. Free up space on the roads. What does that say to you? I'll leave it at that. Right, there's another story that was, where was this story? This was inews.co.uk, and this was also from day before yesterday, I think. What's the date on this one? No, this is actually yesterday. No, both of these reports were from yesterday. Sorry, my mistake. Both of these reports were from yesterday. And in this one, Keir Starmer said, "Driving is in my blood." So he's trying to relate to drivers now. Driving is in my... Is he trying to pretend he's a car guy? I don't think he's a car guy. Right, so he was standing underneath a car jack, apparently at a garage. I was looking at a vehicle that had lost a battle with a pothole, because we were making the case about their pothole policy, so to speak, right? And he said, I love driving. It's been in my blood. I think particularly if you grow up in a rural area. Now he does say, I wouldn't say I'm a petrol head, but I've always loved driving, is what he's saying. For me, growing up, getting a car was the single most important thing in my life. Well, good. I'm glad that he understands that. I'm glad that he relates to that, something that we've been saying for ages. It's what I saved for when I was a teenager. It was my first proudest purchase, and it was a Morris Minor. He paid £125 to get one of those. Fell apart pretty quickly, he says. And then his second car, when he became a legal student, and he had university in Leeds, so he bought a dark green Sea-Reg, half-timbered Morris Oxford Traveller from 1962. Man, how old is this guy? I mean, sure, I mean, you can understand that. There were lots of those around at the time, maybe. I think he's 60-something, 61 maybe? It must be. He called it the Hedge. He even gave it a name. He called it the Hedge. Probably where it ended up. Now he drives a Toyota Hybrid. And he's keen to stress that he is on the side of motorists. Yeah. You really would have to convince me of that, Sir Keir Starmer. Thing is, like, Rishi was also, remember when last year he put out that thing? This is what I don't understand about Rishi. Sunak, who grew up in Southampton, says his first car was a Ford Escort. Fair enough. He now says he and his family use an aging Volkswagen Golf to get about London. Reports claim that he also owns a Range Rover, and California has a Lexus and a BMW. Dude, why don't you just, like, you know, I would love him to just not try to make any excuses about his wealth, you know? Oh, we drive an old Volkswagen. Why do you drive an old Volkswagen? Why don't you drive a damn supercar? I want him to say, dude, I drive an Audi R8 every day. Yeah, cool, petrol head. You know, why is he being shy about the fact that he owns a Range Rover, a Lexus and a BMW? I want him to turn around and say, yeah, I got the BMW M2 with the competition pack, yeah, but I'm thinking of getting the M2, what do you think, you know? That's the kind of person that I want to be talking to. Instead, like, oh no, sorry, we just drive an old Volkswagen. I'm not having it. You know, to be honest, there isn't that much in the manifesto, the Labour manifesto, or even in the Labour claims when they say that they're going to help the motorists. So I need you to think about that really carefully. But whatever claims they have made, we then need to make sure that if that is the case, then we need to hold them to it. But at the same time, you have to read between the lines of those claims. And, you know, when they talk about the fact that, you know, they haven't promised about taxes and stuff like that. So you can imagine your road tax, your VED going up, taxation on cars going up. We know for a fact that there will be tax hitting electric vehicles. That's happening anyway. That was going to happen in 2025. We know that congestion charging is being removed from electric vehicles. Oh yeah, didn't you know that? That's happening in Christmas next year. That's happening anyway. That was already the case. But you just know that with all the policies that Sadiq Khan has introduced, a Labour mayor, and the fact that he will now have a Labour government over him, and they will be looking very closely at his policies, such as low emission zones, such as ULEZ and stuff like that. And they've already said, like I keep saying, a year ago, I think it was, Angela Rayner, Deputy Labour leader, did say that she wanted to roll out ULEZ across the country in other major cities. So I think that, you know, the reality is that they are coming into power. What does that mean for us? It means that we need to look at them and hold them to task very carefully. And that if they really do claim they are the friend of the motorists, then they really need to prove to us that they are the friend of the motorists. Let me know what you think. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about in this election. Catch you in the next video. Check this out, guys. It's my book. It's my first novel, and it's written for car fans like you. It's a fun political action thriller. It's full of cool cars and spectacular action. Get your copy now at Amazon.com. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.